Lo once more. We're on page 47 of the Proclaimer's book. Russell breaks with Barber. In the August 1878 issue of Herald of the Morning, there appeared an article by Barber that denied the substitutionary value of Christ's death. Russell, who was nearly 30 years younger than Barber, still in his 20s by the way, could see that this was in fact denying the essential part of the ransom sacrifice, the ransom doctrine. So in the very next issue, that is September 1878, Russell, in an article entitled The Atonement, upheld the ransom and contradicted Barber's statements. The controversy continued in the pages of the journal for the next few months. Finally, Russell decided to withdraw from fellowship with Mr. Barber and discontinued further financial support to the Herald.
C.T. Russell, though, felt that to withdraw from the Herald was not enough. The ransom doctrine must be defended, and Christ's presence must be proclaimed. Hence, in July 1879, Russell began publishing Zion's Watchtower and Herald of Christ's Presence. Russell was the editor and publisher, with 5 others originally listed as contributors to its columns. The first issue had a printing of 6,000 copies. By 1914, the printing of each issue was about 50,000 copies.
And then
the footnote.
The footnote at the bottom of page 48 says, the expression Watchtower is not unique to Russell's writings or to Jehovah's Witnesses. George Storrs published a book in the 1850s called The Watchtower, or Man in Death and the Hope for a Future Life. The name was also incorporated in the title of various religious periodicals. It stems from the idea of keeping on the watch for the outworking of God's purposes, and they reference Isaiah 21, Ezekiel 3, and Habakkuk chapter 2, which I think is all very ironic because you think about the function of a watchman. Mm-hmm. The reason he's stuck up on the tower is that he's watching for the arrival. Mm-hmm. He's supposed to tell you when the enemy is arriving.
Yeah, he's not supposed to cry wolf before he gets there.
You can imagine he'd be deprived of his job if he were crying, they're here.
Over and over again.
Every day.
Yeah. Then there's a box on this page called I Leave the Herald with You. In the spring of 1879, C.T. Russell withdrew all support from the magazine Herald of the Morning, which he had shared in publishing with Barber. In a letter to Barber dated May 3, 1879, Russell explained his reason. There has arisen a difference of view between us as to the teaching of our Father's Word, regarding the substitutionary value of the ransom. And while giving you credit for all sincerity and honesty in your views, which I claim for myself in the opposite view, yet I must be guided by my own understanding of our Father's Word, and consequently think you to be in error. The points of variance seem to me to be so fundamental and important that the full fellowship and sympathy, such as should exist among publishers and editors of a paper or magazine, no longer obtains between you and me, and because this is the case, I feel that our relationship should cease.
In a follow-up letter dated May 22, 1879, Russell wrote, Now I leave the Herald with you. I withdraw entirely from it, asking nothing from you. Please announce in next number of the Herald the dissolution and withdraw my name. End of quote. Starting with the June 1879 issue, Russell's name no longer appeared as an assistant editor of the Herald. Barber continued to publish the Herald until 1903, when, according to available library records, it ceased publication. Barber died a few years later, in 1906. Mm-hmm. So I guess the first thing that strikes me is that the original group of people from whom Russell gains most of his insights, and the insights that will shape his ministry, and even the witnesses to this day's ministry, the chronology, he gets from other people. It's already been admitted.
Yeah.
Storrs and Stetson have both died the same year, 1879. And now, before that, he's breaking away from Barber, from whom he got the invisible presence and the dates.
Yeah.
But the other thing, that trying to cast him as the hero here, he's the one defending the substitutionary atonement.
Mm-hmm.
When you know what Russell actually taught, what they taught explicitly for those first 4 or 5 decades about the nature of the atonement, you realize, well, you choke on this.
Yeah, yeah. I that was a really big shock for me. We have a book that I read when I was investigating the Watchtower. This one called Tabernacle Shadows.
Tabernacle Shadows,
And
also
yeah,
the 5th volume of the Studies in the Scriptures, the Atonement between God and Man. Both, as you can see, formidable. This one was published in 1881 in its first edition, so before the 6 volumes. Mm-hmm. This one is volume 5, so published in 1899. But what do they teach?
But with Tabernacle Shadows, I was so shocked. I thought, I had no idea that they believed that Christ was not the sufficient for the sacrifice, that the 144,000 are included in the sacrifice for your sins. That was a real shock to me, and I thought, no, that's blasphemous to say that Christ isn't sufficient as a sacrifice for us. We need the 144,000, and I still think there's a seed of that all through the history of the Watchtower, because they say you need the organization. Particularly, you need the FDS and the governing body
as the
mediator
between you and
God,
and Christ and God.
That fits with this picture that they are part of the sacrifice for your sins.
So the original idea was that's why the 144,000 had to be in heaven by October of 1914, because otherwise God couldn't legally turn his attention to the earth.
Yeah.
That concept is still there, but not explicitly.
I mean, I always thought that the rulership had to be in heaven, but that they were ruling. I didn't think they were part of the sacrifice. So that was a real blow.
So they're giving up their human existence. That's the sacrifice. Yeah. They're giving up the human existence, just like Christ did, in your view.
Yeah.
As part of the ransom sacrifice.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't think of them as part of the sacrifice of Christ.
But since they did believe that the Christ was head and body, the head being Jesus, the Christ, and the body being the anointed who were part of his body, they took that metaphor to an extreme and decided that, well, then the head and body has to all go. It has to all be sacrificed before the sin offering is complete. So we've done a video on that. We'll attach that at the end.
Yeah, anyways, that was a shock.
A shock. Like you said, blasphemy is not too strong a word. But I think the epistemology of Russell, how he makes his judgments, how he makes his decisions, this cutting off of Barber, and it's pretty final. I mean, he says, I feel that our relationship should cease.
So I wondered if that was just the business relationship, but you said they pretty much didn't have anything to do with each other after this.
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, because he's not saying you're not a Christian. He seems to say.
Earlier he says, while giving you the credit for all sincerity and honesty in your views. And I thought, well, that tone of generosity I'd heard in Russell when I read him. You know, that there was an element of generosity, that other people could be Christians even if they disagreed with you.
But by the time of the finished mystery, Barber is being called
the evil
slave. So things did change.
Yeah, yeah.
But the epistemology again of Russell, how does he make his decisions? He says in the middle of that first paragraph in the box, yet I must be guided by my own understanding of our Father's word. And that's the problem from the very beginning. He learns from people, like he's learned something from Barber. Yeah. But in the end, he trusts his own judgment. He doesn't go to Christendom.
Yeah, and then that's what you proclaim. Now, it's one thing to have a conviction and believe it, but if you know other Christians have other points of view on it, then in my mind, it's better to show you both, give your best argument for the position you believe in or are convinced of, but let others hear a different perspective, and then they can decide for themselves. But why do we have to just accept his point of view? it could be wrong. I mean, that's true of anything. If you need to listen to as many perspectives so that you can wrestle with it and come to a conviction.
And you have to grant, in all humility, that you're not infallible. Other people might have insights you don't have.
But what happened was that now he is the final word. You see that gradually happening. He's the FDS. He's the one that has special, link with God.
And finally, when he marries, which is around this time, marries Maria Russell, he takes her suggestion, apparently, that he is fulfilling personally the prediction, as she saw it, of a one faithful and wise servant at the end.
Yeah.
So the irony, too, for me, is that after it says Russell decided to withdraw from fellowship with Barber and discontinued his support and his being co-worker, it says then, C.T. Russell, though, felt that to withdraw from the Herald was not enough. The ransom doctrine must be defended and Christ's presence must be proclaimed. Well, then you realize, but he's preaching the wrong ransom doctrine.
It's not, it's
and
not.
And the wrong invisible presence.
Yeah, it's not what Christendom has ever taught, that 144,000 plus one.
But even by the Watchtower's current standards, he's preaching something wrong, right? The wrong ransom sacrifice, 144,000 plus one, plus an 1874 to 1914 invisible presence.
Yeah, he's got dates attached to it and invisibility as part of it.
Yeah. But that's, of course, omitted here. He's made to be heroic in the way he's willing to take a stand about the substitutionary value of Christ's sacrifice.
Yeah. But is that wisdom or a youthful arrogance?
Well, he's still not 30, right? He's 27 years old.
Yeah.
144,000. We've got two links, right? One is the second video in our playlist, which is, the playlist, by the way, is called Have Jehovah's Witnesses Ever Been God's Organization? And the second video, I believe it is, which we'll put on the screen, is that the ransom sacrifice originally was participated in by 144,000 plus one. The one, of course, being Christ.
Yeah.
So we've put down the evidence in I think it's in the book New Creation, where he talks explicitly about that in that video on your screen, but also the playlist.
And then you wanted to finish mystery, where Barber is called the evil slave.
Yeah.
There's another link.
Yeah, that's a video excerpt from the finished mystery where it's made quite explicit that Barber is also fulfilling Bible prophecy.
As the evil slave.
See you soon.